Hi dancers, I want to cover a very big question today because it's something that I am asked on the daily, and that's how many calories should I be eating? So the topic of calories, not gonna lie, is a topic that I love to hate and hate to love. And that's because there is a ton of misinformation out there and varying perspectives about how many calories a dancer should be eating. As a dietitian, there's no doubt that the question of calories comes up often. But here's the thing. Not only am I a dietitian that teaches dancers how to fuel their performance, but I'm also a certified counselor of intuitive eating. Quick recap. Intuitive eating is a non-diet approach that teaches us how to build a healthy relationship with both food and our body. So what does intuitive eating have anything to do with the amount of calories a dancer should be eating in a day? Well, when teaching dancers about the process of intuitive eating, we discuss learning how to make choices around food. So whether that's debating between meal A versus meal B, or perhaps debating between whether they're hungry for a snack or not hungry for a snack, we make choices based on our body's signals. Signals like hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. But again, where does the role of calories come into play? And while intuitive eating is a wonderful goal for anyone to strive for, it might not always be the most practical option for a busy dancer. It could be a very long-term goal for a dancer who's been knee-deep in diet culture, such as following a calorically restricted diet or perhaps has a diagnosed eating disorder. From my experience, there's no doubt that most dancers, and actually athletes as a whole, underestimate their calorie needs. It makes a lot of sense because if we hop on Google and do a quick search about how many calories we should be eating throughout the day, we often come about meal plans constructed for, let's say, 1,000 calories a day, 1,200 calories a day, maybe 1,500 calories a day. And I worked with a lot of dancers in my almost 10 years as a dietitian, and I can proudly tell you that those caloric meal plans are not enough for most active dancers. Under-eating can be intentional and unintentional. Unintentionally, exercise or any physically intense activity like dancing naturally blunts hunger as it shifts blood away from the digestive tract and to our working muscles. So again, it's understandable that many dancers might be under eating throughout the day. So while I encourage dancers to strive for an intuitive eating approach on their meals and snacks, sometimes the discussion of calories might have to come into play, especially as a means to make sure that a dancer is meeting his or her minimum requirements to support both metabolic needs and his or her physical needs as a dancer. This is especially true for dancers that actually need to restore or gain weight. I refer to this as calorie awareness. However, the goal isn't for dancers to develop any obsessive patterns around eating. For example, obsessively counting calories or feeling that they have to measure their foods before eating. These are behaviors that are not only unsustainable, but time-consuming and mentally taxing. We don't want to fall into these behaviors, especially because down the road, we're striving to fuel our body intuitively. Our body is smart. It can tell us how to maintain its energy balance. But when external factors such as target calorie goals and regimented meal plans come into play, we tend to easily lose touch with that ability to fuel ourselves intuitively. For this reason, it is always recommended that not only do dancers refrain from obsessive calorie counting, but also that they reach out to a registered dietitian nutritionist, such as myself, a licensed professional, to better learn how to fuel their body and making sure that they are fueling their body with enough throughout the day. Since calories provide the energy not only needed to perform, but also to enable the body to sustain basic metabolic functioning, then eating too few calories throughout your day puts you at risk for nutrient deficiencies that in the long run can cause injuries. But because calories are a widely confusing topic, especially for dancers, I want to cover a couple common questions. The first, I want to fuel my body sufficiently. How many calories do I need? There are many different calculations available to determine one's calorie needs. While some are based on evidential data, most are usually just given a thumbs up from Google University, and these are not appropriate tools for a dancer. A dancer's caloric needs are extremely individual. A quick calculation is most often unable to account for one's true energy expenditure, or the amount of calories you need in a day. The International Association of Dance Medicine provides a very rough estimate for dancers looking to figure out a roundabout number of how many calories they should be aiming for in a day. 45 to 50 calories per kilogram of body weight. So remember, not pound of body weight, kilogram of body weight is recommended for females. 50 to 55 calories per kilogram body weight is recommended for males. Now realize this is a good starting point, but it still does not take into account your individualized needs, and that's why I cannot stress this enough. If you truly are worried that you might not be eating enough throughout the day, or maybe you feel you're eating too much throughout the day, then I suggest you reach out to me or another licensed professional who knows personally the physical demands of dance. A dietitian who specializes in dancers is what I recommend. The next question, should I count calories? The short answer, no. Remember, counting calories is not a prerequisite for health. I'm gonna say that again. Counting calories is not a prerequisite for health and even for your performance as a dancer. In fact, counting calories is likely going to do more harm than good, especially when it comes to your mental health. Calorie counting sacrifices your time, which can otherwise be spent on improving your technique, optimizing your performance goals, and, well, just living your life. If you're calorie counting day in and day out, you're also going to sacrifice your social life. It's likely to go downhill as you feel a lot of stress and anxiety around eating outside the house or eating meals that perhaps you have not had full control in making. You'll also lose out on the enjoyment of food, a topic that I cover often. If you're only making food choices based on a numbered calorie goal, then how will you ever tune in to your preferences and your body's personal satisfaction cues? Also, you're likely to start feeling a lot of guilt and shame around your food choices. Like, for example, if you're unable to stick to that calorie goal, you're likely to feel pretty down and out about yourself. And trust me, it'll happen and it's not fun, nor is it worth it. As I mentioned earlier, some bit of calorie awareness can benefit a dancer, mainly if he or she needs to make sure that they are eating enough to support their body's needs and not putting themselves at risk for injury from undereating. But if I'm telling you not to count calories, how do we actually take into account this calorie awareness that I'm talking about? I realize that this can be very confusing. In short, how will you actually know if you're eating enough? Instead of turning to the calorie counts, I actually want you to tune in to some important signs that could be your body telling you that you're actually not eating enough throughout the day. One of the biggest ones, well, this is for girls and women. A big sign that you are eating enough throughout the day is that you are getting a consistent menstrual cycle or a regular period. If you're going 3 or more consecutive months without a period, then this could be a major sign that you are simply not eating enough calories to support your body's metabolic and physical needs. Functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. This is what happens when our body is not receiving enough calories for its needs. And in the long run, we risk bone injuries, like stress fractures. For boys and male dancers, it can be harder to identify whether or not you're eating enough. But this doesn't mean that boys and male dancers are at any less of a risk. In fact, relative energy deficiency in sport, also known as red S, and by the way, I'm linking to an article that I've written about red S, is just as much of a risk for males as it is for females. It encompasses a broader range of mental and physical consequences from consistent underfueling. Some of these signs to look out for are lack of concentration, recurrent injuries, chronic fatigue, irritability, depression, loss of muscle strength, a decrease in coordination, and in the long run, burnout. If you can relate to any one of these symptoms, it could be a major sign that you are not eating enough throughout the day. And I'm gonna say it again, it is highly recommended that you reach out to a registered dietitian nutritionist and/or a mental health therapist if you feel that you are dealing with one or more of these symptoms. The next common question I get, what if I'm eating too much? Overeating and portion control are two major topics that I've covered previously, and I'll link to those articles below. But for the most part, identifying your reason for overeating, such as maybe it's related to emotional eating, like for stress and anxiety, and learning how to eat mindfully as a means to tune into your fullness cues are both techniques that I utilize with dancers to help them determine whether or not they are eating too much throughout the day. So I hope these tips have helped you. In conclusion, most dancers are underestimating their calorie needs. So to a certain extent, calorie awareness can be helpful, but calorie counting is not a recommended approach to figuring out whether or not you are eating too few calories throughout your day or too many calories throughout your day. There's other techniques, all of which I've covered in this video, that can better help you understand how to answer those questions. Remember, calorie counting is just gonna take away from your performance goals. And if you're underfueling or trying to stick to an unrealistic amount of calories throughout your day, then you are putting yourself at risk not just to injuries and a decreased performance potential, but you are also putting yourself at risk for burnout. Make sure you check out the article that I am including below. I have a very helpful tool that will help you better assess your calorie needs as a dancer.